This is Only the Strong Survive, a podcast powered by Kahn Media, where we dive deep into the world of business, leadership, and innovation. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and I'm honored to have you join us today. So, let's get ready to learn some survival skills together. Hey everybody, welcome back to Only the Strong Survive, powered by Kahn Media and Tread Agency. Today's guest is Jason Swenk. Jason built and sold a successful digital agency and has worked with major brands including AT&T, Lotus Cars, and more. That's actually something we have in common. Since then, he's focused on helping other agencies grow their businesses through training, systems, and a mastermind group, as well as the most successful podcast dedicated to agency owners on the internet. And it's actually a group that I myself recently joined and found really valuable. He's the host of the Agency Masterclass, where he's been sharing practical advice for agency leaders for over a decade. Jason, it's good to have you on. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
I found out about you, honestly, just through like Apple Podcasts. And I started listening to your show a couple of years ago, learned a lot, found it kind of interesting to listen to other people who owned agencies tell their stories. Eventually, you and I met and started talking, and Darby, who works for you, and I started talking, and I joined your group. But you've got a pretty interesting arc. Can you kind of give us some background in your entry into both business and then agency life, and then what happened after that?
My first job out of college was with Arthur Andersen, if you remember who, only the old people remember who they were, right?
Big Three accounting, right?
Big Five in consulting.
Big Five,
right?
okay.
So I was a computer programmer, but there was a problem with that. I outsourced everything in college, so I didn't know how to program. I knew my time there was very limited. And, I came out of school in 99. So I was just lucky enough that one of my friends looked like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC. My first website I ever created was a website making fun of them called In Shit, and it got popular. And then people started asking me to design websites. And so I started designing websites for like $500. The next thing you knew, I was an accidental agency owner, not even knowing what I was doing. Like I remember my first client asked me for an invoice. I didn't even know what an invoice was. And Google wasn't around then. There was a lot of ups and downs and learning over the years. And eventually, got that agency to a big number, and then we were able to sell it. I kind of got into this business by accident as well, right? Like I had all my old competitors like, hey, how'd you beat us on this? And, how'd you win that Lotus contract? And that's a kind of funny story how I won that. And so I was like, well, let's just jump on it was a Google Hangout, Google Hangout. And just started interviewing and talking to people over Google Hangout, and then put that out as a podcast. So everything's in an accident in my life.
So was your agency mostly web dev? Was it mostly building websites?
It was all web dev, right? Like, you got to think Overture came out maybe in 05, and we started doing that, or 04 or something like that before Google. And if you remember that, but mainly we would build websites. So we built like lotuscars.com. We built LegalZoom. We built AT&T and Hitachi and some of the biggest brands in the world. But the clients I loved were the billion-dollar brands no one ever heard of, because they were more humble and they're easier to work with.
At kind of your peak before you sold it, how many employees were you managing?
We had over 100 people.
Wow. How long did it take to get to that size?
12 years. So we did the agency for 12 years. I think it was around year 9, we were probably a couple million in revenue, and I was miserable in the agency. I literally wanted to quit. And I even took a job interview with a small company called NASCAR. They asked me like 2 questions. They were like, what do you want to do every day, and what don't you never want to do again? I couldn't answer it in the interview. Like, I'm the worst employee ever, right? I went back and I just started thinking about that question. Like, it really resonated with me. I just started writing down everything I hated in the agency. And then through a process of elimination, I was like, oh, these are the cool things I like. What can I say no to? Who can I hire?
This is your agency. This is your company.
This is my
you
agency.
Own. Yeah.
I was literally going to shut it down. Like my wife was like, you were so miserable, just shut it down and go get a job. So that's why I started, that interview. We were profitable too. That's the funny thing was, I just hated it. All it was just getting rid of the project management, all the things I didn't like, right? Like I didn't like the chase or the follow-up on the sales. So I just listed all that stuff out. And then I realized, I was like, look, I can create the agency built around me. And then when I did that, that's when everything started taking off. So at that point, I think we were around like 20 people. And then we just started getting like we were so focused, and we just started getting more clients, and we needed to hire more people. And when you get more people, you have to hire. And the cool thing now is like, you don't need that many people to be at that range of where we were back then. So
the pivot happened when you sort of shifted your perspective to make it more about you. So what you mean by that is, I assume, like some sort of more like authority marketing, thought leadership type stuff.
I wanted to build a lifestyle business around me.
Oh, okay.
Right. I didn't want to do project management anymore. So let me hire better project managers to take more of the stuff off me. I needed to set the vision more for the agency and the direction. So I wasn't the toll booth. Like every decision was going through me because no one knew where the damn boat was going. If I just told them the direction, then they would be like, oh, okay, I can make a decision based on that goal. Like, so for example, with Agency Mastery, our whole goal was to create a resource I wish I had when I was running the first agency, right? That's our North Star. So years ago, my team was writing an article for the best conferences for agency owners to go to, put together like a list of 20. Out of that 20, there was 3 on there. I was like, remove. Like, then I was like, get them off. And my team knew why I told them to remove. They were like, why? I was like, I don't like those conferences. Why don't you like those conferences? Because they didn't ask you to speak there. I said, yes. Right. And then I was like, okay, put them back on. Right. Because they called me on my shit.
Yeah.
Right. So that North Star can call you on your shit, but also lets your team make better decisions without you. And that freed everything up for me. I needed to transform from an owner to a CEO. And there's different roles that you have to go through in order to do that.
That is something I'm still navigating. And it's something I've got a couple of senior leadership team members that are struggling with literally I had one of these calls literally yesterday where they're having a hard time with that, where it's like, okay, I cannot be a bottleneck anymore. How do I get it so this stuff isn't all routing through my inbox? That's a hard thing to learn. And it's kind of a hard thing to teach. It's something that you have to really want.
What I started realizing was I am the worst manager in the world. I can't manage anybody. My brain thinks very different. And your brain probably thinks very different than people that you have to manage. So what I started realizing was, and I could see this in the team, I need to hire the people that can manage themselves. And I need to hire people that are better managers than me to manage the people that need to be managed, right? At the lower levels. There's 5 roles that I realized I kind of needed to fill into. I needed to coach and mentor my leadership team to be better leaders. They were already good leaders, but how do I make them even better based on what we need to do? And that's not managing them. That's just like, like for example, a lot of people go to me, they're like, how do I motivate my team? I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. If you have to motivate your team, you got the wrong damn team. I looked at it as how do I inspire my team to, get better and better. The other part was, and I already shared this with you, is I needed to set the vision, but I needed to communicate that to the team all the time. Like if you ask Darby or Stacy, what's the North Star for Agency Mastery? You'd be like, be a resource Jason wish he had. There's no question. Like that's how we make all our decisions.
Right.
And then the third was I need to be the face of the organization, going back to kind of what you were saying. Fourth, I needed to understand the KPIs. I didn't need to be a spreadsheet nerd, right? Like I look at numbers, honestly, Dan, and I'm like, I want to throw up. Like I just hate numbers, but I needed to understand what are the KPIs that make us, work. And then I needed to build the relationships that no one else could. So those were the roles I had to fall into. And then I was a true CEO versus an owner or a cleaning person, right?
I mean, it's a hacky cliche, but the whole working on your business, not in your business thing is real. So, okay, so you make the pivot and all of a sudden you go from 20 employees to 100 employees. And I'm sure your revenue and profit scale in accordance. It sounds like at that point, you're probably doing pretty well and you're a lot happier. So why sell at that point?
I had a 50-50 partner I started in the very beginning. So that was part of it. The other part was I felt at the time I reached my max. I wasn't working very much. We had a race team in the agency, like we race cars. So I was always at the track. That's how we got Lotus cars too, by the way. Right. I met him at the racetrack. So that was a true write-off IRS, right?
And is this in Atlanta? Where was this at?
In Atlanta, yeah.
Okay.
At Road Atlanta and Barber and all over, we would race. I wasn't doing so much in the business, right? Like it was running without me for the day-to-day stuff. But I just felt like I was at the max. I was like, I don't know how to go from 13 million to 20 million or, to 50 million or whatever. And so I was like, it's probably time to sell. My business partner, I loved him, but the business outgrew him like 5 years before. And I was just kind of tired of him riding on my coattails. And I didn't have the guts back then to just buy him out. I should have. And there was a lot of people hitting us up to sell and we got the right number, right offer. And I was like, okay, cool. This will allow me to retire for the rest of my life. I thought that's what I wanted. I was wrong about being so bored.
So I'm assuming at that point, you're like, what, like 40? Like you couldn't have been very old.
I was 35.
Cool. All right. Then did you try to be retired or did you immediately jump into the next thing?
I did. I got maybe 6 months in and I was bored shitless. Then I created an iPhone app. People would take pictures of everything that you ate. Throughout the day, you would say like, do I feel fat or sluggish or rundown or whatever, and it would overlay it on the pictures to kind of give you a food association. And I thought it was the coolest idea. I thought it was $1 billion idea. I'd like to sell for $1 billion now. Like, let's go for that number, because Instagram at that time just sold for $1 billion. So I was like, oh, if those jokers can do that, let me do that. I was chasing more of the goal for the money. And honestly, Dan, I hated my app. Like, I didn't do it. I didn't take pictures of my own stuff. Even though I believed in it, I didn't use it. So then I was like, I'm a hypocrite on this. So I shut that down. I went to a Tony Robbins event because I was depressed, right? Like, I was like, I'm so bored. Walked on fire. I left after a day because I can't do that huggy crap. And I was like, this fire walking is stupid, right? Like, I was like, this is fake. And then like years later, you know, like in the news, people got burned by walking on fire. I was like, oh shit, that was real. That event actually helped me figure out, well, I need to do something else, something meaningful. And at that time, I had old competitors reach out and were like, hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And I just started coaching other agencies, and I really liked it. Then I kind of found my second career, right?
What came first, the podcast or the kind of mastermind and consulting, or was it all at once?
Like a couple months apart. So I started coaching and mentoring a couple agencies in Atlanta. I started interviewing them over Google Hangout just to put it on YouTube. And like the first couple episodes is kind of funny. Like I just had Jeff Hillmeyer back on. He was a buddy of mine that ran an agency there. And I told him, I was like, you were my first guest that I did on Google Hangouts, but it wasn't a podcast then. It was just a YouTube video. And then a buddy of mine in 14 was like, you should turn this into a podcast. All I thought about was a podcast was listening to an audio over your computer. I was like, no, that's boring. They were like, no. And they explained to me what a podcast was. So I was like, all right, let me do that.
You've got to have one of the bigger kind of back catalogs of podcasts, really in any category, I would assume. Certainly business.
I looked at stats of podcasts. Most people don't make it past one episode. If you're in the top 10% of podcasts in the world, you made it past 10 episodes. Doing the podcast was the best thing I've ever done. I sold my agency at the end of 2011. You know, if I'm going to continue, you know, and I don't do coaching anymore, I just run the mastermind in the community. But like, if I was going to coach people, people are like, oh, you sold the agency, what, how many years ago? Like you've been out of the game. You don't know what's going on. But doing the podcast let me stay in the game to see what the latest things were, what was working for people. And that was the best part. And then the other thing too, is it allowed me to talk to people that would never talk to me. Like we've had Seth Godin on the show, Guy Kawasaki, right? Like all these amazing people. And then also to connect with like you were on the podcast, right? Like just connect with amazing people that if I just reached out normally, you'd be like, oh, go screw yourself, right? So it's helped out a lot.
Yeah. Side note, I tried to get Seth Godin and he was very polite and didn't say go screw yourself, but he also said no. So, good for you that you got him. To give some background to the listeners, and I mean, this doesn't need to be like exact numbers, but ballpark with the mastermind group, roughly how many agency owners are you working with, and what's the kind of mix of the types of agencies they are?
Yeah. So there's only 60 members. So we keep it small. It goes back to what I was saying. I always never liked group coaching, and that's what a lot of people call mastermind. I just wanted to put amazing people that I would love to have dinner with at my house. That's how we kind of vet people, just get them talking. You've seen it. Like I'll just ask a question or just get people talking to figure out what's everybody charging at this, or how'd you come up with your pricing schedule, or how did you hire this particular person, or how'd you get out of this role? I just wanted to get creative agencies, performance agencies, dev agencies of all different sizes, anywhere from $1 million to like 20 million, and just go, put them in a room and let them go. What can we come up with? Like a mastermind, right? Like let's mastermind. Let's use all our minds together, and iron sharpens iron. That was always the goal. And that's what we always strive for, of going, how do we make it better and better and better?
When I joined your group, I expected it to be a mix, and you and Darby had both kind of told me that you said there's some web dev guys and there's some performance, marketers there. And I think there's not a lot of PR. I think there's a few of those in there. But what I didn't expect was there doesn't appear to be a lot of generalists. It's a lot of special, like industry specialists, where it's like one guy who only, like actually a couple of them in the group I'm in, only service like either law firms or like personal injury law firms, like really specialized. Or one of the guys you set me up to talk to, which was a great conversation, was specifically he only deals with independent automotive detailers, like really niche businesses. Is that the chicken or the egg? Are they doing that because you coach them to do that? Or is that sort of where the market led and then it sort of organically came together?
Whenever anybody joins, we always ask the question of like, why'd you join? What are you most excited about learning? We've always done that over the years. And almost everyone's like, I've been listening to the podcast for the past couple of years. And on the podcast, I'm always interviewing specialists, and we're always talking about, you got to be the specialist so you can really drill down to the problem. You can really kind of refine your offer. You can get more streamlined, more profitable. Like you're really eliminating your competition. That's one of the key parts, right? Like, so like I wrote a book a couple years ago called it Accelerating Your Agency, like the 8-system framework. And the first 3 systems are so foundational. We have 2 masterminds, one for helping people build the right foundation, and another one that you're in is already people that are ready to scale. And the first 3 systems are that. Like the first system is all around clarity. Going back to what I was telling you, that I gained clarity of like, who are my perfect clients? Who do I want to work with? What can I actually do for them? And I always ask the question of going, if I was only going to work with people I was going to get paid on performance, who would they be? And what would I do for them? Right. So I get that complete clarity. So then I have to drill down. So that's kind of system 1. And then system 2 is all about positioning and making sure you're positioning that specialization. Then 3 is around your offering that is really compelling to your audience, right? So that's why, like you see in Agency Mastery, the one that you're in, 90% of them are all specialized. The other ones, they'll be pulled along. It's kind of like there's a drinking game in the mastermind. I don't know if you're aware of, like anytime I say create a podcast or raise your prices or pick a niche, right? Those are the 3 things.
I like it. It's interesting because when I read you recommended a book that I have found to be mind-blowing called Profit First. And there's a line in there that made me think of you and the group where he talks about, he's like, think about the doctors you've interacted with in your life. You know, the general practitioner family doctor drives a Buick, the neurosurgeon drives a Ferrari. And there is a reason for that because people pay a lot more for a specialist. And I was like, holy crap, I never thought of it like that before. It's interesting. So a question I have is you probably have more FaceTime and more interactions and deep conversations with agency owners than probably anyone else on the planet, between the podcast and your mastermind and everything else. Obviously, there's been a lot of weird conversations in the business world over the last couple of years about AI and creatives and this and that. Are agencies still relevant? And what's kind of happening in that world? Small businesses, big businesses, like how is that role changing?
They'll always be relevant, but the ones that don't adapt to the newest technology, like think about when I started the agency, it was kind of websites were the big thing. The internet was the big thing, right? I remember there was a big distinction between a traditional agency, like they weren't even called traditional agencies. They were just called marketing agencies, right? Just doing traditional, like outdoor TV, print. That's all they were doing. When I started, the word was like interactive agency, right? And then it went to digital. Now it's back to marketing agency because you should be doing everything. And so the ones that really kind of died on the vine were the ones that didn't want to change. We're business owners, man. We love change. We also hate change too. Mm-hmm. I like learning new stuff. I told you why I sold the agency. I was like, I felt like I reached the max. But looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I've learned so much more, like how to build $100 million agency now, right? And then I'd get to that point and be like, oh, I don't know anymore, sell it. And we tried doing that. But that company went under too. That's another funny story. Yeah. So now with AI, right? Like I told you, I had my company, it was a little over 100 people. 2 years ago, I probably could create the same thing with 30 people. Mm-hmm. In probably this year or next year, I probably could do the same with like 5, which is scary. Utilizing AI. And I'm not just talking about going to ChatGPT and asking it a question that say, create me a LinkedIn post. I'm talking about really creating smart AI agents. Like I just released a video today that talks about, I duplicated myself on the marketing front. I went to ChatGPT, I went to explore GBTs, and then I created an agent. And I said, you're the world's best marketer. And I gave him all the things. I said, here's my brand voice. Here's thousands lines of data of people's biggest challenges that are agency owners. I loaded up all our success stories over the years, hundreds and hundreds of people from selling to their testimonials, that kind of stuff. I loaded up my book. I loaded up all these different things. I loaded up all my podcasts on this agent. So think about, I have a really bad memory. I don't know about you, right? Like, you know, my team would be like, you remember so-and-so 2 years ago? I'm like, I have no idea. But my AI agent knows everything now. And I share that AI marketing agent with my team. Now they're able to go, oh my God, like this is gold. Like I'll be like, create me a video about creating an AI agent. It will create the perfect script. So then what I'll do is I'll record that and then I'll record another video with my like off the cuff stuff. And the videos are doing amazing. Like it's just amazing content and it just speeds up the process. It duplicates me to my team. My team, whenever they want social posts, they can go there. And so now what we're starting to do is create AI agent for every role in the company.
Interesting. We're not quite there yet, but we've had some success doing similar stuff where we create a walled and didn't even do an agent. We just created a walled garden and we dumped every training manual, SOP document, Loom video, handbook that we've ever created internally about all of our systems and processes, dumped them all in there. And it just has just a voice to text feature where employees can just ask, hey, how do I do this thing? And it just says, this is how you do it. And they don't even have to type it. And it was a huge game changer for people, especially for like onboarding and training and stuff like that. I call it an accelerant. It just, I don't think it's going to start the fire, but it's going to make that fire burn way faster and way hotter. So it's interesting.
I mean, we're even using it right now for researching the agencies we want to go after based on a certain size and employee count. It will parse all that data. It will reach out and figure out what's the best way to reach out to them and then reach out to them. It's amazing things, but we have all these AI agents that act as people. And then, we look at it and it's like you said, like you have to give it, like just like any team member, you have to give it a vision of where we're going and be like, how can you help me do this? It's like adding gas on a fire. I mean, it's just this accelerant, like you said, how we can use it more and what are the things we're working on. And I come away from that meeting just so excited.
Obviously, you're seeing success stories. You're also probably, you're like a therapist in a way, because between the interviews on your podcast and the mastermind groups, you're also hearing all the like horror stories and stumbling blocks and things like that too. If a person listening to this is a business owner and they're trying to figure out new website, rebrand, marketing, performance, PPC stuff, whatever, they're trying to figure out like, maybe I should hire an agency. What should they look for? What's a thing to look for? How should they shop for an agency that's going to be good? What are the red flags they should be wary of?
So we've hired a bunch of agencies in the past couple of years to do our stuff. And we don't hire from our community. I just want to keep that, church and state separate. The agencies I've always been looking for and that have the most success are the ones that put out all their knowledge for free. And they walk everyone through actually how to do it, how the sausage is actually made. I want to know that you know how it's made. I don't want to do it, right? Think about you hire an agency, your agency is a middle person. Why are you hiring them? To save time. Everyone can figure out how to do an agency. Everyone can figure out how to do marketing or social posts or that kind of stuff over time. So you're just hiring this agency to save you time so you can focus on other things in your business that no one else can do. But they need to figure out how to build trust. That's why, I always say, when an agency comes to me and they go pitch a big retainer right off the bat, it's a huge red flag to me. I want to build trust. Like when you pitch, let's say a $20,000 a month retainer, that's big risk, especially if it's over a year, $240,000 or whatever it is, a year guaranteed. So I'm like, I would say no, or I would take a very long time of research. The agency can say, let me meet with you for 2 hours. I'm going to charge you a brief fee. I'm going to be losing money on this, but I want to make sure I'm serious. Let's just kind of build the plan together. I want to understand what you're doing now, and then we can build a plan together. I'd be like, ooh, I like that. What you should determine, or that agency should be determining, is what's the biggest opportunity and quickest thing we can do to show impact. And so I'd want them to pitch me a project. Going, all right, cool. We've identified this opportunity. You already just paid me $500 to $1,000 to test it out. Let's do a 2-month test engagement and it's $10,000. I'm like, cool. All right, let's go. And then once I start seeing some success from that, hell yeah, I can go to a $20,000 a month retainer because you've already proven your value. So it's like, don't marry me right on the first date. Take me out for coffee. Like I'll buy the coffee and then I'll buy the dinner, right? You help me out. Then we can get married, right? So that's what I would look for rather than, the red flag of here's a big retainer, sign it, whatever. Looking for a specialist, not a generalist as well.
That's a good point. Do you have strong thoughts? I mean, I know a lot of your clients are small to mid-size agencies. How do you think the big guys are adapting to all this stuff?
I don't know. I don't care about the bigger guys. I just don't. They're so ballooned and they make slow decisions. And that's why a lot of smaller agencies get created, because people get frustrated at these big agencies. And I'm talking like 1,000-person shops, right? We always looked at it with Arthur Andersen, right? I feel a lot of these big agencies don't give the value to the clients that they need to. And they're just charging because they're so big. And you never get fired for choosing IBM. That was the old motto back in the day. So I don't really care about the big agencies, but those big agencies create little agencies that I can help. So I like that.
Well, that happened to me. It happens to a lot of people, I think. So, all right. Hey, everybody. If you're interested in marketing, technology, the future, and how to grow your business, I've got something interesting for you. Over the last few months, we introduced a new concept called the Kahn Media Growth Garage Lunch and Learn. And what we do is once a quarter on a Friday, we offer a 1-hour free webinar where we bring in a subject matter expert just to talk about a topic that is really relevant to your business, to marketing, to sales, and to growth. The first one was actually based on my book, The New Rules of the Road, How to Navigate the Rapidly Changing Marketing Landscape. And it was sort of a holistic look at all the changes that are happening in Marcom today. That one went really well. We had several hundred people attend, and we actually bought lunch for the first 25 people who signed up through DoorDash. And everyone seemed to really like the concept. And if you would like to hear that one, we recorded it and we're happy to share with you. The second one we did just happened a few weeks ago, and we brought Krishan Udvadia, our own head of digital marketing here at Kahn Media, to talk about everything related to the digital paid marketing funnel. So paid search, paid social, remarketing, anything involving sort of direct-to-consumer paid ads. Again, it was a really, really great hour. He did a great job and we got great feedback. That is also available for free if you would like to get a copy of a link to download it and watch it on your own time. And now I'm here to announce the third Kahn Media Growth Garage. It's going to be a really good one. It's August 22nd at 11 a.m. and the subject is AI and how AI is changing SEO or search engine optimization into search everywhere optimization, and how AI is having an immediate impact on search, on web traffic, and how you can get your brand or your company into the AI recommendation engine. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. Once again, we'll buy lunch for the first 25 people to sign up, and we hope you can join us August 22nd at 11 a.m. If you want to learn more, or if you want to get a copy of either of the two past Kahn Media Growth Garages, just go to kahnmedia.com, kahnmedia.com, or email us at info@kahnmedia.com, and we're happy to help. Thanks, and back to the show. Earlier, you mentioned your book and you have kind of like an 8-step framework, a system. Can you give us kind of an overview of that? What is that exactly?
This works for really any service-based business. And I kind of covered the first 3 systems, clarity, positioning, and offering, right? But then after you get that foundation, you need to think about it as, how do I do the prospecting? How do I find that perfect client? And I believe there should be like 3 channels: inbound, outbound, and strategic partnerships, right? And you build those channels because if one channel fails, you still have the other ones to kind of stand on or balance on the stool. Even if 2 fail, you still can kind of balance a little bit without falling on your face. Then, it goes into sales, right? You should have a sales system. So you as the owner is not always selling. And how do you build that sales team? How do you structure that? How do you, train them on the free call to the strategy call and walk them through the offering and build that so you can kind of get out of that side of the business. And then that's where a lot of agencies just stop and they don't focus. But the next system is around delivery. How do you deliver the results that you promised? Because there's a lot of people that teach agencies or businesses how to market, how to sell, but they don't teach them how to deliver the results, how to avoid scope creep. What different team members do you need to put in the right place? And then the last 2 systems are around operations and leadership. And it goes back to those roles of that I told you to kind of go from an owner to a CEO, or should you sell your agency, or when you should not sell your agency or business. Sorry. Obviously my mind for the past 25 years is on agency. I know there's probably a lot of people that are just small business. How do you sell your business, or when should you do it? And so I just wanted to put like an easy framework together and tell a couple, compelling stories to give people some guidance, because there's a lot of times you get into business by accident and then you're just kind of farting around until you kind of get some structure. So,
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let me tell you a quick story, and then I'm going to compliment you. But you mentioned how at your shop you guys use outside agencies, and we had never done that. And in 2020, all of a sudden everyone's working remote, and we got some EIDL money, and we're like, all right, well, and thankfully things were pretty stable. And I had wanted to do a new site. I had wanted to do a rebrand. We had done those before in-house. And kind of like you're saying, I thought, I want to go to an outside shop for a couple of reasons. First of all, I had never been sold to before by an agency. I was always the one doing. So I'm like, I want to see what this is like. I also, my team was pretty maxed out at the time. They had a lot of work. And I thought, okay, I'll keep this off their plates. And they were too close to it. And my creative director at the time was a very challenging personality and not super open to having conversations. Criticism. And so I'm like, okay, let's just go outside the shop and do that. And we did an RFP, learned a lot. A lot of different people had different funnels and different ways of selling. The one we ended up going with was like a branding and web dev agency. And the guy they had the whole biz dev process was amazing. He had this like really cool bookshelf behind him with all these like really cool books. And he was like he would like stroke his beard and had like cool glasses and was like very smart. He looked like Mark Maron and was like very contemplative and would say very pithy things. And I really connected with the guy. And like we just bared our soul to him and said, hey, here's all the things we want. Here's all the things that we don't want. And it felt really good. And we pulled the trigger, and $100,000 later, which was 30 grand over budget, they blew the deadline by like 4 months and then delivered this shit show that was not what we asked for. Most of the key things that were like conversation one, here are the things the site needs to do, didn't do them. Oh, we're going to charge extra for that. It completely fell apart. And so for me, it was such a real wake-up call because the guy selling us was great. And then the second we signed the contract, he vaporized and we never saw him again. And I even flagged it at one point with the owner of the agency, because at one point I was pretty pissed where I'm like, you're over budget, you're over deadline. What is happening? Where'd that guy go? And the owner was a dick. Like we get on the phone and he was super combative with me. And I'm like, dude, I'm go back and rewatch your Zoom calls. On call one, there were things we said we wanted that you still haven't even addressed. It was such a lumpy experience for me. I mean, my only real takeaway was don't do that. So it was interesting when I first started talking to you guys, and my compliments to Darby, who I guess I don't know what his title is, but he's like a biz dev guy basically, right? And
Agency specialist, undercover salesperson.
But that's it. And I mean, it wasn't a secret what he was trying to do. I get that that's his job, but he did it in a way that made me feel good. And I learned something, and his foot in the door was really useful. And I took away a lot. And I'm like, okay, they actually understand what I'm trying to do here. And it was a good process. And there was no bait and switch. At the end of the deal, I felt like, okay, there's value at the end of this thing. And I just have to decide if I can afford it or not. And at the end, I decided I think I could. And I did it. And I'm glad I did. How intentional is everything? Did that happen organically, or are there like conversations happening where you're like writing scripts and figuring out workflows?
No. So the foot in the door framework developed. I was telling this story. I spoke at an event in Denver last week. I told everyone how we developed it. And so we were sitting in a sales meeting in our agency at the time. We were all talking about like $100,000 deal plus, okay, going around the table in our weekly sales meeting. And one of my salespeople, Gene, he started talking about this $2,500 deal he sold. And my sales director was like, what are you going to get? Like a Happy Meal with your commission from that? Like making fun of it. And I said, Gene, tell me a little bit more. Like, why'd you bring that up? He was like, look, they had a hard time trusting us. And I wanted them just to pay us something and to experience kind of our process. I was like, interesting. And so then we did that again and again. So I learned that at the agency. We started doing that and we started winning a higher percentage, right? Because we built trust and we made it not risky for someone to say yes. And I always did it at Agency Mastery here, especially before I even brought on Darby. And so I would always want to get on a call and qualify someone and be like, do I want to help this person and can I help them? So they're interviewing me, but I'm also interviewing them. And I realized too, is like anybody that I want to work with as a client, and everyone should do this as well, a client or member, or however your business is set up. What are your core values, right? And think about my core values are being resourceful, having fun, sharing what doesn't work, sharing what works, right? And that's the core values we look for when we bring on clients. I wanted to be able to test that out, right? And also be transparent too, right? Because like you were saying, you got on with another member, he opened up his QuickBooks, like here's exactly how it is. It's not witch oil, right? And so like when we're talking to people and we do a blueprint, first we want to go, can we help this person? Do we want to help them? And then we're asking ourselves the questions of the core values. Are they transparent? Do they like to share? Like if I ask you and go, what's your agency revenue? And you go, that's confidential. You need to sign an NDA. Well, you're not going to get in the mastermind because that's just a stupid number, right? Like I'm not asking you for your best clients and their contact list and all that. I'm just asking you for a number so I know where to put you and that kind of stuff. So we always took what we loved and what we hated. So we got rid of what we hated that people did, like the slimy time is ticking. You got to do it by this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's false. Unless it really is. Like a lot of times we do raise our pricing and we're like, hey, just to let you know, we are raising our prices next year. You can jump in now or you can jump in later. It doesn't matter. But the whole thing is we want to provide value. If we provide enough value, they'll come to us eventually.
Which happened with me. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. As we're kind of winding down here, I wanted to ask you about kind of mistakes. That's how I learn, unfortunately. I didn't go to business school. So I didn't even know what a P&L was for the first 2 years I was in business. I also didn't pay my taxes for the first year I was in business. That created some problems. Hard lesson learned there. But you've worked with thousands of agency owners. So I'm curious, as you kind of think about, and even kind of moving beyond agency owners, just B2B businesses, I guess, what's kind of the number one mistake you see repeated a lot over and over again? And how do people address that?
Not getting specific at who they help. And it goes back to that one question, right? And I'll show you how it stems for everything of going, if I was only going to be paid on performance only, who would I do it for and what would I do for them? So too many businesses are trying to do too many things and they're doing things that they're not really good at. So think about when Steve Jobs came back to Apple. What did he do? He eliminated all the crap. Like, what is it? The little thing with the pencil? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, and they had the Lisa. They had all sorts of weird stuff they had to get rid of.
So he eliminated all the crap and just focused on the things that they do great at and almost kind of changing the terminology of going, if you say, oh, it's good or it's fine, right? Like kind of what our wives probably do to us. Like my wife does, oh, it's fine. Or like, oh, that's really bad, right? Like I will only release and do things that I know we can do great. If I say it's just good enough, no, it's crap. And so really figuring out what you can become the world's best at. It goes back to like your bad experience with the agency you hired. They're really good at sales and marketing, but then they couldn't deliver. And then you're not going to get that repeat business. Because at the end of the day, if you can do that, then you can charge what you're worth. And you need to figure out what you're worth. Like I have a t-shirt saying, if you constantly keep saying you're too busy, you're not charging enough. And that's a huge mistake. But if you can figure out who you can help, you can deliver amazing results, you can charge whatever you want, then you can bring in the right people rather than bringing in junior people and trying to train junior people because that takes time. So those are the two big things that are really tied together. And then you can be profitable. You can bring in the right people to do the things that you're horrible at or you don't like to do. Like that's the real secret. That's the silver bullet that you need to make yourself, right?
That's good advice. That's smart. And I guess kind of similar vein, and this is a question I ask everyone on the show because my kind of personal motto is make every mistake once. It's how I sort of learn. As you think back on your own career,
several times.
Yeah. And you've had an interesting career with a couple of big pivots. What's the biggest mistake you made and what did you learn from it?
Probably thinking that I reached the max. You can learn every day. It's impossible not to learn every day, but you got to be kind of looking for that lesson. I hate failing, right? Like no one likes failing. But I learn from those. I learn from those way more than I do from my wins. Right? They make me think about things a little bit differently. Like my favorite commercial in the world is the Think Different by Apple. It's the best commercial ever made. Best script, everything. Like I loved it. Anytime I want motivation, I go back to it. So like that's my biggest motto is just think different. But I'm not going to think different until I have that pain.
So embrace the hits.
I mean, it sucks while it's going on. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. But the greatest innovations that I've done, and even looking at all the history of all the different things, it's come from the biggest pains. Steve Jobs kicked out Apple, came back, changed the whole world.
Yep.
That's what he believed in, right? He hired people that believed that they could change the world. And they did. That's pretty powerful. So, you got to kind of be open to that and really kind of figure out what's that direction that you want to go, and you're inspired and you can inspire other people.
I like that. As hokey as it is, my favorite movie scene of all time that I think about all the time was from Rocky Balboa, where he's talking to his adult son and he said, it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
I get chills thinking about that speech, right? Of going like, you're going to listen to him, you're going to listen to him. Like, it's a great speech.
Well, Jason, I've really enjoyed this and I appreciate your time. For people who want to connect with you or learn more about your podcast, your mastermind, where do they go? What do they do?
Got to Swenk it. Just go to Swenk, SWENK.it.
That's all there.
That's it.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your help and leadership. I appreciate you. And that's it for this episode of Only the Strong Survive. If you found it helpful, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and also check us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.